Peace and greetings, you guys. What's good? It's Naya here, and I'm back for another video. Sometimes these topics are a little bit easier to just kind of talk about and ramble about than to try and put it in a cohesive way, written form and whatnot. So I hope that this helps you some way, somehow. All right, so keeping in the theme with pulling the tarot cards in relationship to what your birth chart is saying. All right, so my sun sign is Taurus, as I began to mention in part one of this. And so what is the sun's function? The sun's function is where you naturally shine, how you naturally radiate out into the world, like what the things that almost like make you happy, you know what I mean? And it is another one, it's your intelligence. While Mercury might be associated with intellect and communication, you know, Mercury stays close to the sun. So it's kind of like the words that we have, while our brain is the intelligence. That's where we shine our sun. If something happens to, I'm just saying, if something, basically, where do the words come from? It comes from the mind. So you can kind of almost equivocate, Mercury to the mouth and the sun to the mind. Okay. So anyways, that's the function. And for me, mine is the Hierophant. Or Taurus, excuse me, which corresponds in the tarot to the Hierophant. Now, like I was saying before, when you think of Taurus, what do you think of? If you ever draw a blank when you think of the Hierophant, think about Taurus. Think about what Tauruses that you've known in your life. What are their good attributes? What are their kind of not so good attributes, right? Like the Hierophant could probably get on the pulpit and keep talking and talk in a way where it's like it's their way or no way, like very dogmatic. And that's because they feel really rooted in that belief, or really rooted in what they've learned and what they feel for themselves to be true and correct. And I think I'm guilty of this as well. We all have the capability, but I think in certain instances, I know when I was younger, for sure, I definitely didn't know when to shut up sometimes. So that's why I always try to correct myself, or at least put it out there that what I'm saying is not the end all be all, but this is what has worked for me. This is how I understand it, and I hope that you can take something from it. If it doesn't resonate, I might not be the person to share this information with you. It may need to come through from a different source and whatnot. So we're just gonna keep it funky and keep it going like that. So yeah, the Hierophant. I mean, there's a lot of things going on in this Thoth card. There's a lot, but break down what you know about the Hierophant. Break down what you know about the associated, what your sun sign is. Where do you shine? Where, how do you kind of almost carry yourself? Like I said, Taurus is an earth sign. It is a fixed earth sign. So fixed is kind of the energy that holds the season together for a while. So while Aries would bring in spring, Taurus is the middle of spring, where the days are going to be a certain way. You kind of there's that fixed notion, this is spring, it is here, let's do this. And again, I'm speaking for the northern hemisphere, because in the southern hemisphere, their seasons will be different during the time of year where Aries would bring spring. Okay. So yeah, and so then you have earth, earthy. By that time, all the trees and the plants are kind of in full bloom. They're happy, they're not going anywhere for a while. So there's your fixed earth energy. I think even Earth Day lands somewhere in the middle of spring. Is that right? I might need to do some calculations. You can correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. but it's roughly in that time frame. All right. So yeah, so I would have similar traits in my personality, or how people see me, that, you know, maybe I'm very reliable, I'm very steady. When it comes to my routines, if my routine gets messed up, anytime my routine gets messed up, it messes me up so bad. So consistency and routine is extremely important to me. Of course, every now and then I need a break, but, you know, that's part of what makes me me. It's part of what makes me shine. You know what I mean? It's part of, like, all right, we're doing this today. I said I was going to do this, so I'm doing it, you know, or what have you. Now, something else that we did when we started pulling our birth chart and our cards that went with our birth chart is we actually pulled the minor cards that corresponded to the degree that the planet was in. The decan of the degree that the planet was in. Yes. Okay. And in my case, I'm 8 degrees Taurus sun. So the corresponding card is the 5 of discs for my decan. So what do the minor card, what does a decan even mean? What does it even mean? In terms of something like this, you being, you know, brand new to astrology, coming from tarot and whatnot, and trying to understand, like, why is this a significator card? How does this function for me and whatnot? The way that I like to see it is, I like to see it like this. Your major, and you should already know this, but like your major arcana cards, typically talk about things of spirit, things of bigger than life, bigger than you. It's archetypal energy, which that word kind of gets played out, but it is. And then when you get into the decans, what you're doing is you're taking this big pie. For example, let's say the Taurus energy is a big chunk of pie, and you're breaking it into 3 different pieces with the decans, because each decan is about 10 degrees within a zodiac sign. So wait, yeah, okay. So what I'd like to think is that the 5 of discs is a slice, a certain face of, a certain slice of the Taurus archetype, or the Hierophant archetype. So this is something that a lot of people may not put, even put together and think, like, like, because the title on the 5 of discs in the Thoth deck is worry. And a lot of people, you see that and you're like, oh God, all this like kind of like doom and gloom and all this kind of stuff. But you know what? I'm naturally a worrywart. So when I did this and I pulled this card, I kind of laughed. I kind of laughed because it was so spot on. I was like, well, I'm a worrywart. Yeah, I am. And if you compare this to, if you're using a Rider-Waite deck, for example, you're going to see the 2 people in front of the church out in the cold, walking through looking all rough and everything like that. But the thing is that, maybe they're worried about where they're going next. Maybe they're worried about what other people might think of them. Maybe they're worried about this, could be worried about a million different things. But the whole thing is they keep moving forward because they know, they have known lack, because they have known less than. It gives them the drive to push through the hard times, and the worry of not wanting to get back to that place again is something that drives this particular aspect of Taurus. Okay. And of course, in the Thoth card, you're going to see Taurus, or Mercury in Taurus. Now, again, it's not actually the biggest function of, when you're looking at the small cards, it's not the biggest function. It's more of a smaller piece of how, see, sometimes it's hard to describe both, because it's like I'm tripping over myself jumping from astrology back to tarot and whatnot. But basically, like I said, just think of, you know, if Taurus is, you know what Taurus is, boom, there's Taurus. Here's an aspect of Taurus. One aspect out of 3. And every sign has 3 different aspects. So if ever you know, let's say you meet a Taurus and you're like, you don't act like you don't act like all the Tauruses I know, or you don't act like, you know, a typical Taurus. Well, they could be functioning with the nuance of the 6 of discs or the 7 of discs as opposed to the 5 of discs. You know what I mean? So there's that. There's all this extra esoteric wisdom that comes behind how the decans are figured out on the astrology side, and why certain representations are used on the tarot cards. There's a whole deeper bunch of rabbit holes and wormholes and all that stuff that goes into that, but for simplicity's sake, that's what it is. So when you look at your Decan card, you think of it as what makes you unique to being a Taurus. Me, boom, worry wart. Constantly like, okay, let's try to get ahead of this new challenge. Let's try to get ahead of somebody who might be trying to knock me off my guard. Okay, and of course you can kind of hear that Aries moon coming in, right? That fighter aspect, but you still need that energy to get through the hard times. And at first, when I found out this was my card, and this was a while ago, I really probably spent like a month with the card trying to figure out, how is this an aspect of myself? How is this, what does this all mean? You know? And it took time. This whole exercise is really great because, you know, it's not gonna, you can't just like look at it and go, aha, right away. You keep going back to these cards that are significant to you and understanding more and more about the different nuances, the different keywords, different ways that it can manifest, different ways that you can express it, different ways that it is expressed in, you know, through others, things like that. But this is just, it makes the tarot a little bit more personal. And while you're learning about these cards and while you're learning about these aspects, you're also learning about that zodiac sign, and a facet of that zodiac sign when you bring in the minor cards. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and move on to part 3 of this mini series. Hope if you're still with me this far, I love you and I thank you. I'll talk to you on the next one. Peace, peace, peace.